I'm Donna, and this is Some Bold Adventure. I'm telling the story of the biggest adventure of my life, following in my grandfather's footsteps on the World War II Ghost Mountain Trail in Papua New Guinea. Last time I talked about the struggles I was having on this hike. This time I'm going to take a break from the struggle to talk about what it's like to trek in Papua New Guinea, where we stayed, what we ate, that kind of thing. These villages are really remote. There's no electricity, no running water, no roads either, just the trails we're walking. Sometimes there's not even that. Our carriers will create a path with machetes and shovels, digging toe holds or tying ropes for steep parts. Everything is so remote it can take days of walking to get to a town. So nearly everything here they make themselves. The remoteness means there's really no medical care. They do have schools though, and we delivered school supplies and other items anywhere we stayed as a thank you gift for their hospitality. Whenever we arrived at a village, they would all turn out to greet us. How they greeted us was up to them and the traditions of their village. Some welcomed us with songs and ceremonies. Every village seems to have a talented calligrapher. Sometimes they would come greet us by carrying us into the village. Sometimes they would attack you, the idea being that you submit to that to show that you will follow the rules in their village, which is fair after all. In the villages, we generally stayed in a hut like this, or this. These are crafted with materials found in the jungle, and the craftsmanship is amazing. The fire on the floor seems a little sketchy, but they do know what they're doing. The huts are built up on stilts with small ladders to get up, which gets tough when your knees are hurting. Underneath is shade, and it's a good place for people to gather, taking shelter from sun or rain. We trekkers would normally sleep together in an open room under our mosquito nets. They built guest toilets for us. There's a small hut with a hole in the floor for doing your business. Also difficult when your knees are hurting. Often they didn't have doors, so you could have a loo with a view. Bathing happened in a river. A lot of times, some of the people would turn out to watch, so you usually did your bathing and your laundry at the same time. Speaking of laundry, our clothes were often dirty and never dry. You'd hang them up at night, they're still wet in the morning, and you'd stuff them in your pack. Take them out the next night, they're still wet, and now they stink. Everything stunk all the time. The only time it would dry was if you wore it, and then it was only dry until you sweated and made it wet all over again. Now think about what that must have been like for the soldiers that came through here. They were actually given uniforms for fighting in Europe, and those uniforms had to be dyed for the Pacific at the last minute, but the dye in them clogged the fabric and they ended up getting sores from it. So yes, wet and sticky clothes were not fun, but again, we had it much easier than the soldiers. Sometimes, when there were no villages around, we bush camped, staying in tents in the jungle. You can see us here trying to have dinner after dark. The porters would dig a pit we would use as a toilet, and the way there was lit with candles. That was it for amenities. We would have a candlelit path to a pit. I had a tent to myself, and honestly, I enjoyed the privacy. I'm accustomed to solo hiking, and this was a very different experience from that. For food, our porters carried much of it. They did all the cooking too. For breakfast, we often had porridge or muesli, usually with fresh bananas. Lunch was often tinned meat, corned beef or tuna on crackers, and maybe some instant soup. Peter would periodically dole out sugary snacks, and we brought our own bars and treats. For dinner, tinned meat, maybe fried spam, which tasted way better in the jungle than it does at home, with produce from the village gardens. Here are some examples. I don't remember what all this is. There were a lot of things similar to potatoes that weren't necessarily potatoes. Sometimes we'd have these greens called chaco, I think, and tomatoes or cucumbers, sometimes papaya or pineapple. One night, one of the trekkers had a birthday and the team made a cake over the fire and frosted it with Nutella. It was amazing, magical. I wish I had a photo of it. When the Red Arrow soldiers came through here, the army resupplied them with airdrops. They struggled to get the supplies into them, though. Their commander, Colonel Quinn, boarded one of the planes to oversee the drop. But one of the parachutes got tangled on the plane, bringing the whole thing down, killing everyone on board. The bodies were recovered, but that plane is still out here in the jungle somewhere. The people we met in the villages were amazing, so welcoming and willing to share their culture with us. You know, I came here for the history and maybe the scenery. I didn't know the people and the culture would have such an impact on me. At the end of the night, before going to sleep under your mosquito net, you check your whole body for any scratches, because scratches turn into infections very easily. War correspondent Osmar White wrote a book called Green Armor detailing the early fighting in New Guinea. He said, "I haven't been properly dry and my feet are spongy and inclined to blister. I've managed to keep infection down with iodine, am keeping to the rule of never going to bed without washing, powdering, and disinfecting feet, armpits, and crotch. This personal care takes about an hour a day. Can troops be disciplined to observe like precautions?" U.S. General Robert Eichelberger, who took control of the troops at Buna, wrote a book called Our Jungle Road to Tokyo, where he described the condition of the troops. No one could remember when he had been dry. The feet, arms, bellies, chests, armpits of my soldiers were hideous with jungle rot. So it sounds like the personal care precautions were very difficult in the conditions they were dealing with out there. Honestly, we had a luxury trip compared to what the soldiers went through. That's it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel to join the adventure. If you haven't seen from the beginning, make sure to check out the playlist with all the videos from this trip. Leave me a comment too, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching. I wasn't going to quit, and I certainly did not want to be sent home.